Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. The scent of lavender and honeysuckle filled as Ricarda stepped into the sunlit glade. Her heart raced, a mixture of excitement and trepidation coursing through her veins. She glanced down at her new form, still marveling at the softness of her skin and the gentle curves that had replaced her boyish frame. "I can't believe this is happening," she whispered, her voice melodious and unfamiliar to her ears. A rustle in the nearby bushes caught her attention. Eugenia and Jill emerged, their faces lit up with wonder and curiosity. "Ricarda," Eugenia called out, her voice filled with warmth. "How are you feeling?" Ricarda smoothed down her dress, a gesture that felt both foreign and natural. "I'm adjusting," she replied, a small smile playing on her lips. Jill approached, her eyes scanning Ricarda's new appearance. "You look lovely," she said sincerely. "It's quite remarkable, isn't it? Being in Narnia again, I mean." Ricarda nodded, her gaze sweeping across the lush landscape. "It's more beautiful than I ever imagined, but I still can't wrap my head around this." She gestured to herself, her cheeks flushing slightly. Eugenia placed a comforting hand on Ricarda's shoulder. "I know it's overwhelming, but try to embrace it. Aslan must have his reasons for bringing us here like this." As if on cue, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the glade. "Indeed, I do, dear ones." The three girls turned to see Aslan himself padding towards them, his golden mane shimmering in the dappled sunlight. Ricarda felt a wave of warmth and peace wash over her, easing some of the confusion and anxiety she'd been carrying. "Welcome, daughter of Eve," Aslan addressed Ricarda directly. "You have been brought here for a purpose just as your companions have." Ricarda swallowed hard, finding her voice. "But why? Why am I a girl now?" Aslan's eyes, deep and wise, seemed to peer into her very soul. "Sometimes, to truly understand ourselves, we must see through different eyes. Your journey here will teach you much about courage, compassion, and the strength that lies within you, regardless of your outward appearance." Before Ricarda could respond, a commotion erupted from the edge of the glade. Two badgers, their fur sleek and shiny, came bustling through the underbrush. "Oh my," the female badger exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. "Visitors from the other world! How splendid!" The male badger, slightly more composed, gave a polite bow. "Welcome, friends. I'm Henry, and this is my wife, Mavis. We're honored to make your acquaintance." Jill stepped forward, her face brightening. "It's wonderful to meet you both. I'm Jill, and these are my friends, Eugenia and Ricarda." Mavis clapped her paws together. "Oh, how delightful! You must come to our set for tea. We have so much to discuss." As they followed the enthusiastic badgers through the woods, Ricarda found herself falling into step beside Eugenia. "This is all so surreal," she murmured. Eugenia nodded in agreement. "I know, but try to keep an open mind. My first time in Narnia, well, let's just say I wasn't the most agreeable companion, but this place has a way of changing you for the better." They arrived at a cozy burrow nestled beneath the roots of an ancient oak tree. Mavis bustled about, setting out acorn cups filled with a fragrant herbal tea, while Henry arranged cushions made of soft moss for their guests. As they settled in, Ricarda couldn't help but notice how different it felt to sit in her new body. She tucked her legs underneath her, smoothing her skirt self-consciously. Jill, noticing her discomfort, leaned in and whispered, "It gets easier, you know. Just give it time." Mavis set a plate of honey cakes on the low table between them. "Now then, dears, tell us all about your adventures. It's been so long since we've had visitors from your world." As Jill and Eugenia recounted their previous experiences in Narnia, Ricarda found herself relaxing, drawn into the warmth and camaraderie of the moment. She sipped her tea, surprised by how much she enjoyed its delicate floral notes. "And what about you, my dear?" Henry asked, turning his kind eyes to Ricarda. "Is this your first time in Narnia?" Ricarda nodded, setting down her acorn cup. "Yes, it is, and it's quite different from what I expected." Mavis leaned forward, her whiskers twitching with interest. How so, love? Ricarda hesitated, unsure how to explain her transformation. But something in the badger's gentle gazes encouraged her to open up. Well, you see, I wasn't always a girl. Back in my world, I was a boy named Richard. A moment of silence fell over the group. Then, to Ricarda's surprise, Mavis reached out and patted her hand with a velvety paw. Oh, my dear, what an extraordinary journey you must be on. But fear not, Narnia has a way of helping us discover our true selves. Henry nodded sagely. Indeed.
Many who come here find themselves changed in ways they never expected. It's all part of Aslan's plan, you see.
Ricarda felt a lump form in her throat, touched by their acceptance and understanding. Thank you, she managed to say, her voice thick with emotion. As the afternoon wore on, the conversation flowed freely. Ricarda found herself laughing at Mavis's humorous tales of life in the forest and listening intently to Henry's stories of Narnia's rich history. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows through the trees, a distant sound caught their attention. It was a melody, hauntingly beautiful and unlike anything Ricarda had ever heard before. Oh, Mavis exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. The dryads must be dancing. Come, we simply must go see. The group hurried out of the burrow, following the enchanting music through the twilight forest. As they approached a moonlit clearing, Ricarda gasped in wonder. Graceful, ethereal figures swayed and twirled among the trees. Their bodies seemed to be made of mist and starlight, leaves and flowers adorning their flowing hair. They're tree spirits, Jill whispered, her voice filled with awe. Aren't they beautiful? Ricarda nodded, transfixed by the otherworldly sight. As she watched, she felt a strange stirring within her, a desire to join the dance. Without fully realizing what she was doing, she took a step forward. One of the dryads noticed her, smiling invitingly and extending a shimmering hand. Ricarda hesitated for a moment, then took it, allowing herself to be drawn into the circle. At first, her movements were awkward and unsure. But as the music flowed through her, she found herself moving with a grace she'd never known before. Her body seemed to know instinctively how to sway and twirl, her long hair streaming behind her like a banner. As she danced, Ricarda felt a sense of freedom and joy unlike anything she'd experienced. For the first time since arriving in Narnia, she wasn't thinking about her transformation or worrying about what it all meant. She was simply being. When the dance finally came to an end, Ricarda found herself breathless and exhilarated. She turned to see Eugenia and Jill watching her with broad smiles. That was incredible, Eugenia exclaimed, rushing over to hug her. You looked so beautiful and free out there. Jill nodded in agreement. It was like you were meant to be part of it all along. Ricarda felt a warm glow of happiness spread through her chest. I've never felt anything like that before, she admitted. It was magical. As they made their way back to the badger's burrow, Ricarda felt a new sense of confidence blooming within her. She walked with her head held high, no longer self-conscious about her new form. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Ricarda awoke to the sound of birdsong, stretching languidly in the cozy nest of blankets Mavis had prepared for her. She sat up, running her fingers through her long hair, marveling at how natural it felt now. Good morning, sleepyhead, Jill's cheerful voice called from outside. Come on, we're going on an adventure. Ricarda quickly dressed in the simple yet elegant Narnian clothing that had been provided for her. A flowing skirt of soft green fabric and a white blouse embroidered with delicate flowers. She stepped out of the burrow, blinking in the bright sunlight. Eugenia and Jill were waiting for her, along with Mavis and Henry. They all looked excited, practically bouncing with anticipation. What's going on? Ricarda asked, curiosity piqued. Henry puffed out his chest importantly. We're going to show you one of Narnia's greatest wonders, the Crystal Caves. As they set off through the forest, Ricarda found herself falling into easy conversation with her companions. She was surprised by how comfortable she felt, how natural it seemed to be part of this group. Their journey took them through sun-dappled glades and over babbling brooks. Along the way, they encountered all manner of talking beasts, squirrels who chattered excitedly about the latest forest gossip, a wise old owl who offered them directions, and even a family of playful otters who splashed them as they crossed a stream. As they traveled, Ricarda noticed something changing within herself. She felt stronger, more confident with each step. The initial shock and discomfort of her transformation were fading, replaced by a growing sense of wonder and possibility. They were about halfway to their destination when they heard a commotion up ahead. Rounding a bend in the path, they came upon a distressing scene. A young fawn was surrounded by a group of rough-looking dwarfs who were jeering and pushing him around.
Hey!
Ricarda called out before she could stop herself. Leave him alone! The dwarfs turned, their eyes narrowing as they took in the newcomers.
The largest of them, a surly-looking fellow with a thick red beard, stepped forward. Well, well, he sneered. What have we here? A bunch of meddling humans and their pet badgers?
Ricarda felt a flash of anger at his mocking tone. She drew herself up to her full height, surprising herself with the authority in her voice.
I said, leave him alone. What has he done to deserve such treatment?
The dwarf leader scoffed.
This little weakling wandered onto our mining territory. We're just teaching him a lesson about respecting boundaries.
Jill spoke up, her voice firm.
That's no excuse for bullying. Narnians should treat each other with kindness and respect.
The dwarfs exchanged glances, clearly not used to being challenged. The leader's face darkened with anger.
You'd best mind your own business, girl, or you'll be next.
Ricarda felt a surge of protective instinct. Without thinking, she stepped in front of Jill, placing herself between her friends and the hostile dwarfs. We're making it our business, she declared, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Now back off and leave the fawn alone. For a tense moment, it seemed like the situation might escalate into violence. But then, to everyone's surprise, a deep, resonant roar echoed through the forest. The dwarf's eyes widened in fear, and without another word, they turned and fled into the underbrush. As the sound of their retreat faded, Aslan himself stepped into the clearing. His golden eyes swept over the group, filled with pride and approval.
Well done, daughters of Eve,
he rumbled.
You have shown great courage in standing up for those who cannot defend themselves.
Ricarda felt a warm glow of pride at his words. She turned to the young fawn, who was looking at them with a mixture of gratitude and awe. Are you all right? She asked gently. The fawn nodded, his curly hair bobbing. Thanks to you, he said shyly. I'm Tumnus, named after my great-uncle, who was a good friend to the kings and queens of old. As they continued their journey to the crystal caves, now with Tumnus in tow, Ricarda found herself reflecting on what had just happened. She had acted without hesitation, standing up to the bullies with a confidence she'd never known she possessed.
You were amazing back there,
Eugenia said, falling into step beside her. I don't think I've ever seen anyone stand up to dwarfs like that before. Ricarda blushed slightly at the praise.
I don't know what came over me, she admitted. I just couldn't bear to see them treating Tumnus that way.
Jill smiled knowingly.
That's the magic of Narnia, she said. It has a way of bringing out the best in us, showing us who we truly are inside.
As they approached the entrance to the crystal caves, Ricarda felt a sense of anticipation building. Mavis and Henry had been talking about this wonder throughout their journey, and she was eager to see it for herself. The cave mouth loomed before them, a dark opening in the face of a towering cliff. As they stepped inside, Ricarda gasped in awe. The walls glittered with thousands of crystals, refracting the light from their torches into a rainbow of colors. It's beautiful, she breathed, reaching out to touch the smooth surface of a nearby crystal. As her fingers made contact, something extraordinary happened. The crystal began to glow, pulsing with a soft, warm light. The glow spread, racing along the veins of crystal throughout the cave until the entire cavern was illuminated in a gentle, otherworldly radiance. Oh my, Henry murmured, his eyes wide with wonder. I've never seen them do that before. Aslan, who had been silently observing, spoke up.
The crystals respond to the touch of one who is pure of heart and true of spirit, he explained. Ricarda, you have proven yourself to be both. Ricarda felt a surge of emotion at his words. She looked around at her friends, at the magical world she had been brought into, and felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. As they explored the depths of the crystal caves, marveling at the intricate formations and hidden pools of crystal clear water, Ricarda found herself filled with a newfound sense of purpose. She realized that her transformation wasn't just about changing her outward appearance. It was about discovering the strength and courage that had always been within her. The journey back to the Badger's set was filled with animated chatter and laughter. Ricarda found herself in the middle of it all, her earlier hesitation replaced by a newfound confidence. She regaled the others with tales of her world, discovering a talent for storytelling she never knew she possessed. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink, the group settled around a cozy campfire. Mavis bustled about, preparing a hearty stew that filled the air with tantalizing aromas. You know, Eugenia mused, poking at the fire with a stick. I can't help but feel like we're here for more than just sightseeing. Aslan always has a purpose when he brings people from our world to Narnia. Jill nodded in agreement. You're right. I've been getting that feeling too. It's like there's something brewing. Ricarda hugged her knees to her chest, the warmth of the fire washing over her. What do you think it could be? Before anyone could answer, a rustling in the nearby bushes caught their attention. They all tensed, memories of the encounter with the dwarves still fresh in their minds. But instead of a threat, a small, bedraggled figure stumbled into the clearing. It was a young dryad, her leafy hair wilted and her bark-like skin pale and sickly. She swayed on her feet, her eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Please, she gasped, you must help us. The forest, it's dying. Ricarda was on her feet in an instant, rushing to support the dryad before she collapsed. What do you mean? What's happening? The dryad's voice was weak, barely above a whisper. A darkness has fallen over the western woods. The trees are withering. The animals are fleeing. It's as if the life is being drained from the land itself. Eugenia and Jill exchanged worried glances. This must be why Aslan brought us here, Jill said grimly. Henry puffed up his chest, looking determined. We must investigate at once. The fate of Narnia could be at stake. As they prepared for their journey to the western woods, Ricarda felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She knew the dangers they might face, but she also felt a burning desire to help, to protect this magical land that had already come to mean so much to her. They set out at dawn, their small party now including the recovering dryad, who introduced herself as Willow. As they traveled, the changes in the landscape became increasingly apparent. The vibrant greens of the forest gave way to muted browns and grays. The air grew thick and heavy, filled with an oppressive silence. It's like the forest is holding its breath, Tumnus whispered, his hooves clopping softly on the increasingly barren ground. As they pressed deeper into the western woods, they began to encounter other refugees, talking animals and magical creatures fleeing the encroaching darkness. Each had a similar story to tell, a creeping shadow that seemed to suck the very life from the land. On the third day of their journey, they crested a hill and gasped at the sight before them. A vast swath of the forest lay gray and lifeless, the trees nothing more than twisted, blackened husks. At the center of the desolation stood a towering obsidian structure, pulsing with an eerie, sickly green light. The source of the corruption, Willow whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of fear and anger. Ricarda felt a chill run down her spine. What is that thing? I've heard tales, Henry said gravely, of an ancient artifact called the Heart of Winter. It was created by the White Witch to spread eternal winter across Narnia. But it was thought to have been destroyed long ago. Jill's face set in determination. Well, it looks like someone's found it and brought it back to life. We need to find a way to stop it.
As they made camp that night, just beyond the edge of the desolation, Ricarda found herself unable to sleep. She slipped away from the others, needing a moment alone to process everything they'd seen. She found a small clearing bathed in moonlight and sat on a fallen log, her mind whirling with thoughts and fears. She was so lost in contemplation that she didn't notice the golden figure padding silently into the clearing until Aslan spoke. "Troubled thoughts, daughter of Eve," Ricarda started, then relaxed as she met Aslan's wise, compassionate gaze. I'm scared," she admitted. "What we saw today, it's so much bigger than anything I've ever faced before. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I let everyone down?" Aslan moved closer, his warm breath ruffling her hair. "Ricarda, do you remember what I told you when you first arrived in Narnia? That you were brought here for a purpose?" She nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "Your journey here has been about more than just changing your outward form," Aslan continued. "It has been about discovering the strength, courage, and compassion that have always been within you. The challenges you face now are great, but you are more than equal to them." Ricarda felt a warmth spreading through her chest, chasing away the chill of doubt. "But how do we stop something so powerful?" Aslan's eyes twinkled with a hint of mischief. "Sometimes the greatest strength lies not in force, but in the purity of one's heart. Remember the crystal caves, Ricarda. Remember what you learned there." With that cryptic advice, Aslan turned and padded back into the forest, leaving Ricarda with much to ponder. The next morning, the group approached the obsidian tower with caution. As they drew closer, they could feel the malevolent energy pulsing from the structure, sapping their strength and resolve. "We need to find a way inside," Eugenia said, her voice strained against the oppressive atmosphere. They circled the tower, searching for an entrance, when Ricarda noticed something. A small crystal, similar to those in the crystal caves, embedded in the base of the structure. Without thinking, she reached out and touched it. Just like in the caves, the crystal began to glow, pulsing with a warm golden light that spread through the veins of the tower. The obsidian began to crack and crumble, revealing a hidden doorway. "Ricarda, you did it!" Jill exclaimed. They entered the tower, climbing a spiraling staircase to its heart. In the central chamber, they found the source of the corruption, the heart of winter, a pulsing green gem set atop a pedestal of ice. As they debated how to destroy it, Ricarda remembered Aslan's words. She stepped forward, her heart pounding, but her resolve firm. "I think I know what to do," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. She approached the heart of winter, feeling its icy tendrils trying to seep into her mind. But she focused on the warmth within her, on the love and friendship she'd found in Narnia, on the person she'd discovered herself to be. As she placed her hands on the gem, a battle of wills ensued. The heart of winter fought to corrupt her, to turn her heart as cold and lifeless as the forest it had destroyed. But Ricarda stood firm, channeling all the warmth and light she'd found within herself. Slowly, impossibly, the sickly green glow began to fade. Golden light poured from Ricarda's hands, suffusing the gem. With a sound like shattering ice, the heart of winter cracked and then dissolved into harmless dust. As the tower crumbled around them, the group raced back outside. They watched in awe as life returned to the forest. Trees straightened and leaves unfurled. Flowers burst into bloom and birdsong filled the air once more. Ricarda stood in the midst of it all, tears of joy streaming down her face. She felt Eugenia's arm wrap around her shoulders, heard Jill's delighted laughter, saw the proud smiles on the faces of Henry, Mavis, and Tumnus. In that moment, she knew that she had found her true self, not in the form of her body, but in the strength of her heart and the courage of her spirit. Narnia had given her a gift beyond measure, and she silently vowed to treasure it always. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.